Libertad's baby, please, on the daily. Today we're going to be talking about the 1984 Onza Libertad. So let's start off talking about the mintage, the total graded NGC population and total PCGS population. And this is the top of our chart with the rarest 2019 antiqued for the MS set. And we scroll down and we're going to see it's lumped together, right stacked in between the last two, the 82 and the 83 we discussed in the previous two videos. Mintage also over 1 million. So again, that's not rare for the Libertad, but rare comparative-wise to the American Silver Eagle. And on NGC, you got a pretty sizable amount graded, over 3,600, and PCGS 1,655. So I've talked about this the last couple of videos where I mentioned for the major part of the years, less than 1% of the Libertads, this is the red delineated line for 1%, less than 1% of the mintage for any given year has been graded. The very clear outlier is the 2019 antique, pretty much right over 50% of them. There's 1,000 of them and over 50% of them have been graded by both grading companies. I think that's happening with the parabolic price appreciation that's happening there. Those bad boys are up to more or less around $2,500 for an MS-70. So I think that's driving everyone to get their raw coins for that one graded. There's something to be said about those 90s. I talked about the crack out effect, which basically folks take old slabs. They want to gamble again what they grade. They might have had a 98 MS-68. They crack it out of the slab. They say, I'm going to crack this slab out, take the raw coin, resubmit, give it another shot. Maybe there's a grader in a good mood and I'm going to get myself a 69. So I do believe those are actual overestimates by a sizable amount of the true number of raw coins that have been graded. I think it's not a unique count because folks are cracking out, resubmitting the coins. And then something to be said about these latter years, especially in 2020 forward, Blackstone acquired NGC and they've been pretty lenient in terms of grading, at least at the wholesale level for the dealers, for the bulk submissions. I know a lot of us at the retail side, that they're pretty stringent sometimes. There's been a lot of evidence lately that they're stringent, but for the dealers, they're giving them away like hotcakes, to be honest. So let's lock in on that 1984 in terms of looking up the population report on NGC. And there we have the total number that have been graded. It's slightly higher than the number I should show you on my chart because I don't have a live connection to these numbers. I kind of have to do a little updating to get those in there. But take a look. There is a single 69 out there. I think on last video I've highlighted why it's likely not a true 69. And then there's 28 68s. That's what I have, a 68. And just like I highlighted last time around, it's one of my few regrets in the collecting of Libertads. And this doesn't go for all of them. There are exceptions. The 2019 antique, the MS-70, you want to have that. It's rare. The 1998 in a very high grade, although they're cracking them out and resubmitting, it's rare. You want to have one of those. A Type 2 1991, you want to have one of those in the highest grade possible. There's a lot of price appreciation on those. They are actually truly rare. But an 84, you have over 1 million mintage. Less than 1% have been graded. Statistically, there's a huge shot that 68s, especially with NGC and PCGS both favoring grading inflation because probably drives the bottom line. That's what's driving that behavior. Not worth it to be paying the top bucks like I did and getting ripped off. And then over time, this number is going to get higher and higher. And then likely I overpaid. So just like I mentioned in the last video, the grand majority of the almost 3,700 graded, 3,695, the bulk of them are sitting at 66s. So if you want a nice Libertad slabbed for your collection, the best value for your buck is just going for that 66. You'll get to appreciate, sorry, not the right word. You'll get to enjoy the appreciation, price appreciation of silver. And that really looks like that's going to happen relatively soon. And speaking of which, and first the disclaimer, it seems like one has to say this is not investing advice. You should do your own research, your own due diligence, and consult with whatever professional you feel is appropriate. But I mean, this is looking at a chart of silver going back to the 70s, goes back to 1973. This is a quarterly chart, and it's a candlestick chart. So each candlestick each stick represents 3 months. It's quarterly. So it's 3 months. It's a quarterly chart. And it's essentially, what did the price start off at the beginning of that quarter and what did it end off? So if it is red, a red candle means it started at a higher price and ended up at a price. The solid part means where it started and where it ended in that quarter. The wick that extends just means in that 3 months, the price has traveled up there. It was in there in that range, but ultimately it closed down there. And it even went as low as that part of the wick. And that was in the 1980 peak. So red, thick part of the wick, you start up there and you end on the bottom. Green part, conversely, that meant you started on the bottom part of the thick wick, of the thick candle part, and you ended up at the top part. And so this has been the quarterly price history. A lot of folks always talk about price manipulation, particularly when it comes to metals. And why I love quarterly charts is the longer the time frame, the less noise from shenanigans and quote unquote manipulation. So this final candlestick that we're seeing right here, this pertains to right now. This candlestick will know how it completes at the end of June. End of 4 p.m. Eastern. On June 30th, we will know where this is. This is the magical line of kind of the resistance on a quarterly basis, going all the way back to the 70s. My conjecture, and obviously just a conjecture, but once that line is breached, it's clear skies. So time will tell. I wanted to have a little fun. Do a little close-up on the coin. And those that know me will say, I know where you're going with this, Titty. I mean, this is my 68. It's a bit dinged up there. You got imperfections. Look at that. You got to start wondering, how did this get a 68? But that's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm zooming in. You might have an idea there. But here we go. Let's look at the one. Oh, would you look at that? So you remember all that rubbish with the double die reverses? Remember, this is the reverse side of the coin as defined by the Mexican Mint. Oh, look at that. Look at that, right on the edge of the O, a little bit on the edge of the N, the bottom of the Z there on the top portions of the letter A on UNFA. You know, so let me explain to you as I've come to understand. Look at some imperfections there, some double dying there. This is how I've come to understand of the mechanics, or better put, the logistics of the double die reverse designation and the way I've come to understand how it gets done. I'm just probing around as I tell the story. But essentially, what folks do, quote, I don't know if you want to call them collectors. I don't even think you want to hear what I'd like to call them, but I won't say that. But they essentially will submit this coin. They may even have it in a slab. They'll crack it out. They'll submit it and say, you know, it's a double die reverse. Look at that. Look at that letter R. It's a double die reverse, NGC. And here's a variety plus fee added in. Please give me that designation. And every time, I have never experienced it where a collector themselves got the designation and they kept it. Almost every single time, the person that gets it, what happens? they go running to eBay. They post it up there for like thousands of dollars, and they're like, only one of one because they got the first one. And then you got some folks with a lot of money in their pockets and they want to be on top of that NGC registry list, and they'll shell out the cash for it. But that's really what it comes down to. That's the sad reality of how these double die reverses get handed out. And I mean, this didn't get this designation. And I showed you in the 82 video, the 83 video. It's not rare. Out of the total graded population, it's a sizable portion of the population. That's not rarity. It's almost just like a side business going on here. It's not true collecting. It's not true numismatics. I'm not a fan of that. I don't condone that. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time for the 1985.